kind of interesting. My hearing aids are finally working and my head's not. Okay, the executive committee, call it in order. If I could go through a roll call. Kathy?
Catherine McKnight, Dallas.
John Crane, Dallas.
Garrett Donnelly, Midland.
Laurie Limbacher, Austin.
Pete Peterson, Alpine.
And John Now, Houston. We have a quorum. Joseph, you want to take it away?
Let's see, we have the first thing was, is to consider the approval of the executive committee minutes.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. Call for a vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
And then next we have Anjali to discuss the MOU with the THC Friends.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners.
Working today.
Thank you. As you all know, the Texas Historical Commission is authorized to enter into a memorandum of agreement with the Friends of the THC to establish the relationship between the Commission and the Friends, the nonprofit, and to delineate the responsibilities of each party regarding administration, fundraising, establishing fundraising priorities, appointing board members, all of that. We have a current MOA between the Commission and the Friends, which was executed on June 30th, 2020, and it's set to expire on August 31st, 2025. According to the government code, any changes, any substantial changes or material changes to the MOA require Commission approval, regardless of the dollar amount. And so we do have some changes that we have made to the current MOA. These are mostly clarifications, direct references to the government code that authorizes the Friends to do the work that we do, and sort of to support what Joseph was talking about yesterday, which is to clarify and codify the Friends of the THC's operating partnership with the Commission. We've made some of those changes in the current MOA, and that's in your packet as track changes, so you can see the changes. There are specific references. So we're requesting an extension, approval of this MOA with an extension all the way to 2030 now, just to sort of skip the approval again next year, because that's when we would be coming back to you for an approval for 5 more years. So that's what you have in front of you. And that's the suggested motion for this committee.
I move that the committee send forward to the Commission and recommend approving the amendments as outlined for MOA number 808-24-243-109 with the Friends of Texas Historical Commission, and authorize the executive director to sign the agreement on behalf of the THC.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Being none, call for a vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We'll move it forward.
Thank you.
Next we have Elizabeth, who'll give us an update on the Texas Preservation Trust Fund grants.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Elizabeth Brummett, Director of the Division of Architecture. Our first item is considering approval of funding recommendations for the Texas Preservation Trust Fund grant program for fiscal year 2025. On February 5th, our staff accepted 44 initial applications requesting over $2 million in grant funding. The THC invited 32 of those projects to proceed to the project proposal stage on April 10th, which is the second part of our 2-part application cycle. On July 17th, we received 26 project proposals to consider for grant funding. These included 1 archaeology project, which is shown here. If we can advance to the next slide. 1 heritage education project. Next slide. 18 architecture projects seeking regular TPTF funds, of which we have $365,799.95. I believe I have another sample of the architecture as well. And then if you'll go to the next slide. We also received applications for an earmark we have resulting from mitigation that resulted in $1.4 million dedicated to projects in the city of Dallas. Of that, we have $879,924 remaining of that earmark, and we received 2 architecture projects requesting those earmarked funds. Next slide. We have a similar earmark for projects in Amarillo or in the Panhandle area. We have all $500,000 of that earmark remaining, and we received these 2 architecture, and next slide, 2 heritage education applications for those funds. If you'll advance to the next slide. The Texas Preservation Trust Fund Advisory Board met on September 19th to review the project proposals, and the board approved the staff funding recommendations without changes in all project categories. So in those categories where we did not have a large number of applications, including archaeology and heritage education, those scoring teams felt that those projects were very strong and should receive funding. So both of those projects shown here are recommended for funding. Of the 18 architecture projects, there were 7 that we would be able to fund before we deplete the funding available from the regular TPTF grant cycle. So those are shown here. Next slide. We also recommend all of the City of Dallas and Panhandle area projects for funding. And there's some really unique proposals within that subset, things that may not have scored well enough if they were in the regular TPTF to be competitive, but things that staff are very excited to see move forward. Next slide. The remaining 12 projects in the architecture category competing for the regular TPTF grant funds are projects that staff feel are very worthwhile. We would have been glad if we had sufficient funds to fund every single one of these. And so what we've recommended and what the advisory board has endorsed is that these be considered alternate projects. So if any of the other regular funded TPTF projects are to drop out, we would be able to fund these projects in score order. Next slide. So that brings us to the recommended motion, which has 4 parts: to address the regular TPTF funds, address each of the earmarks individually, and then to address that authorization of the executive director or his designee to award alternate projects if we have grant funds returned. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Well, the chairman has one, but I'll open it to the committee.
I have one, Elizabeth.
Certainly.
The city of Dallas just has a little issues at Fair Park with their money disappearing and not being available. So are you guys, are we going to be able to know it gets used for the projects we've approved it for?
Yeah, so this is a, let me actually flip to my notes for that project. It's the music hall at Fair Park, and the grant would be to Broadway Dallas, who manages that building. It's a performing arts venue.
Yeah, no, I'm very familiar with it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so I am not certain how their management intersects with Fair Park First, but our grant would not be to Fair Park First. It would be to Broadway Dallas.
They have some management company that controls all the money, I guess. So just that y'all would be aware, and I don't know how all the players intersect or money's transferred between them, but they are having.
I think we're safe on this one.
Well, 69.
My question, you opened by saying we didn't have, I'm paraphrasing, we didn't have a lot of applicants address that issue. How do we send it's time to apply notices out? How do we do that?
We had more applicants than we were able to fund for the regular TPTF cycle. It's the 2 earmarks that We are not going to deplete with these awards. We'll still have funds available after this, and so we're certainly looking at marketing efforts targeted in those areas specifically for the next grant cycle. We work with our communications division to send an email blast. People can subscribe to which THC emails they want to receive, and there's a subset that receives TPTF updates, and so they'll receive that broad notification. We also have been doing outreach to local preservation nonprofits in Amarillo and in Dallas to have them help us get the word out about those opportunities.
Yet you're still, I had a sense that when you opened, that you didn't feel we had a really robust group of applicants. Is that a correct statement?
We would be delighted to have more applicants from each of those locations.
So did the marketing communications group work on this?
We will be working with them very soon to promote the fiscal year 26 grant cycle. We worked with them for fiscal year 25 and followed their recommendations. If you have any suggestions, if any of the commissioners have suggestions for additional ways we could publicize this, we'd be glad to hear that.
I always have suggestions. I don't know if it's going to work. Yeah, we'll come back to that.
Okay,
All
thank
right.
you.
Joseph?
Well, we have the motion ahead. We just needed
Mr. Chairman, I'll be happy to make the motion if that's appropriate.
Thank you. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll say.
Okay, we have that. Is there any discussion? Being none, vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
Carried. We'll move it forward.
Elizabeth's going into our next portion, which is the Lockhart Rosenfeld School.
Yes, during the last legislative session, the legislature deposited $3 million into the Texas Preservation Trust Fund account, quote, to provide grants for the surveying, restoration, and preservation of Rosenwald School sites. This language and these funds were introduced by Representative Barbara Gervin Hawkins, and she has been very upfront in her conversations with Vaughn and other staff that she intends these funds to go specifically to the Lockhart Rosenwald School. Because the earmark doesn't include that name as the recipient of the grant funds, we felt that it would be best to bring this forward to the commission to formally ratify the $3 million grant to the Lockhart Rosenwald School. Division of Architecture staff have been in communication with a representative of the Most Worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge, who's the owner of the Lockhart Rosenwald School. The lodge recently engaged Carter Design Associates to provide architectural planning services that will define and determine the scope of rehabilitation work needed. Based on initial assessments, we do believe that this particular building will be able to use the $3 million in its entirety. This is a very large, unusual Rosenwald School. It is the only it's the last remaining of two 6-teacher-type Rosenwald schools built in Texas in 1923. It's listed in the National Register of Historic Places and is a recorded Texas historic landmark. We are anticipating that the lodge is going to request an initial draw of grant funds to fund those planning efforts. And, in anticipation of that and to ensure that we're fully compliant with the TPTF program rules, we're bringing this grant award forward to the commission.
Okay, do I have a motion? Then we're going to have a discussion.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman, I'll be happy to make the motion. Do you want me to read it?
Please.
Move that, and I can test out my new glasses. Move that the committee send forward to the commission and recommend approval of a $3 million grant from the Texas Preservation Trust Fund for the preservation of the Lockhart Rosenwald School, Lockhart, Caldwell County, and waiving the 1-to-1 cash match requirement.
Second.
Good
We
perspective.
have a motion and a second. Now, discussion. Committee, you go first.
Can you explain again what the concern was between the original award and?
Garrett, the mic.
Could you reiterate, I'm not sure I quite understood what the issue with the way the language is in the statute, or when the money was funded versus what your issue is?
Yes, so for comparison, I'll mention that we had a couple of other earmarks last session through the Texas Preservation Trust Fund for two different historic houses in Clarksville and Red River County. And the names of those houses, the Lennox and the DeMorse houses, was specifically listed in the line item that provided them with $1 million apiece. In this case, the language is very general. It's funds for preservation activities at Rosenwald schools generally, and doesn't specifically say that the funding is targeted to the Lockhart Rosenwald School. This was based on advice that Representative Gervin Hawkins received, that she should not be specific in how she introduced that language. We've shared with her how because it seems like she may be interested in funding other projects at other Rosenwald schools. So we shared with her the language for those other two earmarks to consider going forward. Given that we don't have a specific recipient or specific property listed as a recipient of this funding, staff felt it would be cleanest if the commission ratifies the grant award.
And Elizabeth, would this deplete the entirety of the earmark, or are there funds remaining?
It will deplete the entirety of the earmark.
So the representative has an intention to seek a future earmark, perhaps?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
So in theory, this could be hopefully cleared up in a future earmark.
I don't think that a future earmark would clear up this specific one, but she may introduce more targeted language that would eliminate the need to bring it forward to the commission.
And I noticed when I read the motion, my glasses do work, is the one-to-one cash match requirement being waived unusual as well?
Well, we've had many, we've had a number of earmarks that the legislature introduces. A number of them do not go through the Texas Preservation Trust Fund. This one is specifically tagged as being administered through the trust fund, and so the trust fund rules would come into play. Those rules indicate that it's up to the commission to waive a match requirement. We have no indication from the representative, nor do we believe the project would be expensive enough to require $6 million. That organization would not have those funds in hand. So we believe the intent was to have these funds provided without a match required.
Go ahead. Did you have a question?
I do have a question. So, y'all determined the exact school, the Lockhart School, from some sort of internal, external review, or just a phone call with the legislature? I mean, is there any legislative history or discussion about what the funds are actually for?
We've had multiple conversations with Representative Gervin Hawkins, and she's been very clear in her intent.
Okay, but there's no legislative history that would indicate this specifically?
There is
Okay.
none.
Okay, thanks.
Is there a time limit on getting these funds committed?
We had unexpended balance authority to carry them forward from fiscal year '24 to fiscal year '25. We would like to get them under contract shortly in order to commit them within fiscal year '25. I believe we'll be seeking UB authority for all TPTF funds within this budget cycle.
I don't know that you addressed this specifically. Is this the first time we've had a use of this fund targeted exactly against one asset from the legislature?
We've had other, I'm trying to think, there's a log cabin, the Gibson Grant cabin in Denton. I believe that was not through the Texas Preservation Trust Fund. We've got the two that are in Clarksville that we're administering currently.
And on those two, were they specifically referred to in the statute?
It
So
was
this is the issue, is this was not.
Yes, exactly.
So I assume we have a list of all the Rosenwald schools in Texas, their condition, and what we might be looking at down the line. Is that correct?
We have extensive research that Greg Smith, the former National Register Coordinator, performed. There were 527 built in Texas. I am not certain the number that remain. Greg had identified a substantial portion of those that remain, but I'm not sure that anyone knows for certain exactly how many are remaining.
Thank you.
Joseph, the rules are promulgated by us, or are they handed to us on the trust fund
There are rules.
Yes.
from the legislature, or do we create them? I'm trying to remember.
Well, they're authorized under statute, and then we establish the rules that govern that.
Right.
Right.
To the committee, obviously, we have the motion. I would say that this probably requires us to do a little bit of work. If we move forward on this one, we need to clear this up. I'm a little bit concerned about specific utilization of the fund without working through us. That concerns me, because it's conceivable that in the next legislative session, this fund gets targeted to projects that we may not support, let's put it that way. That's the risk, correct?
Certainly.
Brad, do you have additional information?
I was just going to clarify and make sure two things. The legislature did put money in to cover this.
Right.
So the risks are still there, but they're not allocating money out of the trust fund. They're basically funneling it through the trust fund.
That's the next step.
And then the other thing, just to clarify, the major reason this is coming to you, there's the technical reason that we've described, but only the commission has authority, not staff, to make these grant awards.
Right. Brad, I understand what you just said. The next step, however, could be direct legislative instructions on this utilization of this. That's what struck me. Now, I would think, committee, that we need to move forward on this one school, but we really need to go back in and look at how protected the fund is. Otherwise, it could easily, we could wind up with many such authorizations coming out of subsequent legislative sessions. Garrett?
I guess and I think Lori had one too. Oh. My question was there a particular reason the representative wanted to go through the Preservation Trust Fund rather than earmarking this and having it be a pass-through directly?
She hasn't expressed that directly to me, but I believe it has to do with the level of accountability that she's looking for. We had a conversation with her where she was very pleased to hear how we would be overseeing this grant award, ensuring that the work is carried out appropriately and that there would be a completion report at the end of the project. So we have that level of oversight if it's through the trust fund, whereas if it was simply an earmark, a pass-through that was not tied to the trust fund, we would provide those funds up front without as many strings attached.
Are there any other questions, concerns?
I have one, so, and it's about kind of the whole, we just saw a Supreme Court case about this, that the legislative and then administrative branches, they make the rules, enforce the rules, be the rule maker. So I just want to caution us to maybe look at that, since we drafted the regulations, we get to be the king and decide who gets what. I would be cautious about that, because administrative bodies are under the microscope right now because of the Supreme Court case that just came down.
Understood.
Yeah, it is actually, it's the SEC, and it's very interesting,
It
actually.
is.
Well, we've had discussion. The first, are we, the executive committee, prepared to move on this, recognizing it was a specific legislative action? I don't know that we want to get into challenging that. On the other hand, the action does say we need to maybe better protect or better inform the legislature, and otherwise funding can get picked to pieces. Having said that, the staff recommends it. It seems to me it's pretty clear and clean. Did you want to say something?
Well, I was also going to say, based on the language and everything else, I mean, we're choosing to do, I mean, we're not being instructed in any way. We're choosing to do this, and we can
Yep.
theoretically deny it as well if we really want to, but, you know, so if it comes down again like this and it's something we don't support, then we could still, we still have some decision
What
in
we've got to do
here.
is come up with rules that deal with this.
Yes.
That seems to me,
Because we're on record with the,
Yeah.
you know, talking to the legislator about what her intent is, and then kind of going along that way, if you will.
Well,
go ahead.
I think in the packet, there's paperwork that seems to be excerpted from the budget bill that includes the specific reference to this grant. And then there's also a letter that the commission issued in 2023 specific to this grant. So I don't have the sense that anything inconsistent with those prior expectations articulated in the paperwork in our packet would be occurring here.
On this one, I agree with that.
Okay.
It's
You're
it's
worried about the
opening-
future, the precedent.
It's
Unintended
opening the door.
consequences, yeah.
Yeah. Well, as the executive committee, I think Joseph and the staff, it would be helpful to give me a rough language on how we deal with this type of issue. Do we really want this fund to be managed away from us? That seems to me to be the question. So, having said that, any other discussion? Call for a vote on moving it forward. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Vaughn, who will give us a legislative update.
Perfect timing, Vaughn.
Yes, Vaughn Aldridge, Government Relations, and so many of these things are personal with me. Once the conference committee report was finalized on House Bill 1, Representative Gervin Hawkins called me directly and said, this is what I want to do with that money. So DOA's been terrific on all of these pass-throughs, and we have the two houses in Clarksville, in different places in budget bills. Senator Huffman even had an appropriation in the supplemental bill for Fort Velasco in Brazoria County in her district. So DOA has worked to the extent that they needed to be involved with each of those, and will continue to be involved with each of those. So thanks to them. This is from the gala last Wednesday night. Representative Trent Ashby was one of our guests there at the gala. Next slide. And Senator Courthouse and Jim Courthouse, Senate Finance met for 7 hours that day. She literally left the Senate Finance Committee room and came straight over to our gala. Had a wonderful time. We had Senator Zaffarini was also there. Governor's new chief of staff, Robert Black, and obviously it was a great event. raised a lot of money. It was entertaining to watch the bidding go back and forth. If you weren't there, it was folks of different tables across the room bidding against each other and driving the prices up, which I think
That was
Auntie Lee
good for the
liked.
friends.
I was, I want, after we get through with those things, the attachments, the things that we do that have legislative tiebacks. I went to before driving all the way to West Texas, I was down and back to Presidio La Bahia on Tuesday. Congressman Michael Cloud was supposed to be there. He was called away on short notice, unfortunately, because his daughter had a volleyball game that was like a playoff game, and it was, I think his priorities were correct, but otherwise, we had 18 staffers from Congressman Michael Cloud's office that was there, including Chief of Staff and Deputy Chief of Staff from the D.C. office. He sits on House Appropriations, and he sits on the Interior Department Subcommittee of U.S. House Appropriations. So it was worth the trip to meet those people, and I think they enjoyed the visit to Presidio La Bahia immensely. Wandered all over the place, asked many, many questions. So yesterday, not yesterday, day before yesterday, on my way here, I stopped in San Angelo and had lunch with Senator Perry's district director in San Angelo and with Congressman Pfluger's district director. It was, just doing the job. It's always fun. I wanted to mention that I got a call from Michael Moore, our day-to-day person in the governor's office, last Friday afternoon. Among the things we talked about, he specifically asked about any legislation we might be thinking about trying to get passed during the session. So I sent him a little capsule on every issue, because we had already sent drafting instructions through two state representative offices, including Trent Ashby's centennial markers and monuments legislation. That one's probably already being drafted right now. The other one was the Washington on the Brazos Foundation, getting them into statute so that they have a similar relationship to the Nimitz Foundation and the San Jacinto Museum, Battlefield Museum Association. So those things are already in progress. I sent the governor's office the drafting instructions. Also mentioned the Friends of the THC expanding by name a more formal relationship in law would be part of what we're trying to accomplish. Joseph's already mentioned the additional retailing at historic sites or at the online at the commission level. The list of historic sites, we had a discussion with the lobby team a couple of weeks ago. We're working on trying to figure out a way to either get around that, or the concern is that we'd have to amend the list of, enumerated list of historic sites that's in the law. And right now, it's a badly flawed list. It either needs fixing or to convince the legislature to take that out.
Vaughn, on that issue, have you talked that over with Robert Miller or Daniel?
I'm sorry, I can't.
You and I are in the same boat.
Yeah.
Have you talked that issue over with either Robert Miller or Daniel?
Robert wasn't at that meeting. I haven't had the specific conversation with Robert, but I've been communicating with other, Gardner and Sarah had expressed an interest in that. and Daniel, obviously, Daniel didn't like the idea of having to amend that enumerated list constantly. It's in the law, frankly, still, because, Mark wanted to take it out 2 years ago, and the bill did that until Senator Colcourse was uncomfortable with taking the list out, and that got amended back into the bill at the last minute.
I remember that. Talk to both of them, would you please? To both Daniel and Robert, and with your guidance, let's figure out how to move forward if all three of you think so.
All right.
All right?
We still have the sale of cemetery for non-payment of back taxes.
Yep.
We're working on doing a statutory change rather than a constitutional amendment, and personally, I think it's doable. It's not easy, it's a complex issue, but if we amend tax code, I would not recommend making that part of an omnibus bill. There wasn't actually discussion with the lobby team about an omnibus bill, but Robert was the one that suggested we handle things that way 2 years ago.
Try to enumerate as many specifics that have come forward to us. I think that's going to help us make the case. None of us were aware of specifics, so I say this to Joseph and the staff. The more specifics you can make on that, the better the chances of moving it. All right?
We'll get that out to everybody as it progresses, so.
I appreciate that.
I was going to talk about pass-throughs, but we've already done that.
Can I ask one quick question on the pass-throughs? When representatives like Representative Gervin Hawkins start to ask about putting money out like this, what advisory do we do for representatives that do this, so that maybe we can make sure that if they have specific intent for funds, that we understand that before codified?
Garrett, I am going to actually walk up here in order to hear better. I'm sorry. The microphones were doing too well yesterday.
Yeah.
Say again.
So Representative Gervin Hawkins put that into the funds, but she put it in a general fashion, so that, and then on the back end tried to come back, whereas we had others that specifically put properties in there. Throughout the legislative session, what advice do we put for representatives that are trying to earmark funds like this? What advisory do we do for those representatives?
We have never done anything like that. We don't encourage them to use our bill pattern or in the budget bills. This is an initiative that each of them does individually.
Okay.
It's news to us when we find out that one of these things is
I see.
progressive.
Okay.
And the nature of it is that this is between and amongst themselves. Representative Bonin, the chairman of the House Appropriations Committee, worked with Representative Van Dever and Representative Gervin Hawkins, both of them multi-session members of the Appropriations Committee, for those, the money is doled out. I mentioned Senator Huffman in the supplemental bill. We find out about these things after the fact, and then we work with them to actualize the project. Very glad that Donna Carter has taken charge of the issue down in Lockhart. She and I have talked about it. Mr. Chairman, you remember State Representative John Cyrier, now retired. He has volunteered to help. He lives in Lockhart. He has volunteered to help pull things together at the local level in Lockhart on this particular. Donna Carter knows John Cyrier. He's a retired construction guy, very successful. and he's not a historic preservation specialist, but he understands it. Former county commissioner, we gave him an award because he headed up the stewardship of the historic courthouse in Lockhart. So there's a team on the ground now that are, that will make Representative Gervin Hawkins very happy about this.
But we're not going to solve this sitting here right now, and because of plane schedules, we've got to move forward to the full commission. But I shared Garrett's concern, and I'll say to the executive committee, I'm going to work with Vaughn, Joseph, and the lobbyists to try to clarify how to protect these funds. Otherwise, you run the risk of having a lot of it dedicated. I'll just, Vaughn, you know that, and we got to figure this one out. Yes. That's it.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay, Joseph?
It's your report, sir.
It is? I'm going to hold it because I've got a number of things, but I'm going to hold it for the full commission.
Okay.
Does any other commissioner have any specifics? Executive committee? All right. Do I have a motion to adjourn? So moved. Second?
Second.
We're out of here. We'll get Joseph full commission in 10 minutes, and we do have air schedules that we're going to have to try to hit.
Correct.
And therefore, I got to keep my speech. Kick me if I'm long-winded.
Oh, okay. Just so you know.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, as I said earlier, we have a number of plane schedules that will cause us to move this forward. There will be no break. To the commissioners, we are at the fault line for voting. Any commissioner that has to leave before a 2-hour meeting, if you have to go, please tell me now, and we will move votes forward. All right? Yes. Oh, by 12 o'clock, I'll be on the road.
Thank you, Jeff.
All right?
Mr. Chairman, I
Yes.
recuse on one vote, but
I'm sorry?
I need to recuse on one vote. That will not affect the quorum, as I understand it.
I don't think so.
I don't think
I
so.
don't think recusing affects the quorum.
Do we have any lawyers other than you, Kathy?
Yes, right there.
No, no, perfect. I like you already.
No, you've been
Okay.
shopping in Odessa.
Would everyone please turn off their cell phones? Public comments will be taken today in person only. If you want to address the commission, please make certain that you have filled out a form. Today is October 25th, 2024. It is now 9:20 a.m. This meeting of the Texas Historical Commission has been properly posted with the Secretary of State's office according to the provisions of Texas Open Meetings Act, Chapter 551 of the Texas Government Code. The commission may discuss and/or take action on any of the items listed on the agenda as long as we have a quorum, he says. First, we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise. Kathy?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Texas pledge. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Thank you. Commissioners, for the record, please state your name and city of residence, starting down here. Jim?
Yes, Jim Brisseth, Austin.
Renee Dudia, Dallas.
John Crane, Dallas.
Catherine McKnight, Dallas.
John Now, Houston.
Gary Donnelly, Midland.
Laurie Limbacher, Austin.
Pete Peterson, Alpine.
David Gravel, Highland Park.
Thank you. We have a quorum present. I declare the meeting open. Absences. We got a bunch. We'll excuse them. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Public comments. And I am going to very tightly enforce our 3-minute rule on public comments. Melissa Higgins on the Pecos Trail. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, commissioners and staff. Thank y'all so much. I am welcome to invite y'all, or to happy to have y'all in the Pecos Trail. Thank you to those that participated in the tours on Wednesday. It was great to be able to showcase some of our wonderful sites around the Midland, Odessa area. And also, it was wonderful to have our event on Wednesday evening, the opening reception. Pecos Trail just finished helping with the State Fair of Texas. We will be waiting for the numbers for the Go Texan Pavilion, but the State Fair numbers were 2.4 million came through the gates. So very exciting about those numbers. We continue to have our wonderful booth at the State Fair where all of our visitors can come through and pick up brochures from all over the state. Gearing up for one last meeting before the holidays, and then January will kick off with trade shows, statewide meetings, and all of those wonderful things happening. We are just excited to still continue going forward, and we look forward to the next legislative year and the opportunity to ask for the little additional money that we can also possibly get. So thank y'all again so much for being in the Pecos Trail. I appreciate y'all being here, and I hope y'all enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comments and the hospitality up here. Thank you. We have Tammy Verdon, also on the, now this is the Forge Trail. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, Chairman, Commissioners, staff. Again, I just want to ditto what Melissa just said. Our schedules are pretty similar, and State Fair was great, another year in the books. Forge Trail has just completed their second wine festival for the year, and that rolls out 2024. This year, the Texas Forge Trail region has also scheduled 4 mini caravans. I would like to say this: we have successfully completed 3. Number 4 is scheduled for December 4th, 5th, and 6th, and we will complete that with 4 of our forts, our Presidio, and a tour of the painted rocks out of Paint Rock, and we're looking for a good turnout there. We will finalize our day and our caravan at Christmas at Old Fort Concho. January kicks off our trade show year, and we will be busy doing that, along with meetings and conferences and so on and so forth. So I just want to say thank you for your support. And again, thank you to Melissa Higgins and the Texas Pecos Trail and the Conleys for the hospitality this week. The tours were fabulous, and I think that there was lots of great networking. Thank you.
Thank you for all you do. We have Valerie Bates, come on up. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, Chair and Commissioners and staff. My name is Valerie Bates. I'm the Marketing Director for the City of Port Isabel, and I manage the Port Isabel Lighthouse State Historic Site for you all. With me today are Cody Camacho, who works with me at the Lighthouse and Port Isabel Historical Museum, and City Manager Jared Hakama. I'm taking a little inspiration from Troy yesterday, and I'm going to quote our Google AI review for the Lighthouse. Visitors to the Port Isabel Lighthouse State Historic Site in Texas have many positive reviews, including praise for the views, history, and staff. So I think Google AI gets us. We're hosting a community Halloween event at the Lighthouse tomorrow with the Port Isabel Volunteer Fire Department. This year we're adding an educational component. Thank you for the inspiration. A scavenger hunt like we did for our Easter egg history hunt. And we're testing what we hope will be an immersive lighthouse tour experience. We're laying down audio track with sounds and speech that might have been heard in the lighthouse from 1853 to 1905. Visitors will be able to hear that while they're in the lighthouse. We're going to put speakers up through the top of the lighthouse. We'll debut this tomorrow night and continue into Halloween. We think this might be an impactful and entertaining way to connect our visitors with the site. Tuesday, we start our interpretive master plan with a THC team site visit. Our classroom project continues to progress, and we saw an increase in our FY24 numbers with 72,152 visitors, including Joseph Bell and Dr. Carol Agali. Cody and I participated in Destination Day at the State Fair of Texas on Columbus Day. We traveled with Bella, our 12-foot inflatable Port Isabel lighthouse. She's traveled over 4,000 miles. Every state fair is different. This year there was a general hesitation to take something with them that would affect their enjoyment of the fair. More than one person would pick something up and check the weight on it and put it back on the shelf. So I think bags might be helpful. Our numbers were on par though, but there was less talk of bucket lists. People asked where Port Isabel was a lot. 2 years ago, we were amazed at how many people had recently visited Port Isabel. So Cody and I are still processing the outcomes. And of course, we also represented Tropical Trail while in the Texas Heritage Trails booth at the Texas State Fair. This last quarter, Tropical Trail hosted tours in Alamo, Hidalgo County, San Diego, Duval County, and Portland in San Patricio County. One of the biggest highlights was a record attendance of county historical commissioners, with 15 of the 18 commissioners attending in Duval County. Impressive participation. November's Tropical Tour will be in Laredo and Webb County, and March 2025 Tropical Trail will meet in Kingsville to commemorate 2 decades of adventuring and learning in the southernmost 20 counties in Texas. A save the date will go out very soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Wow, thank you, Valerie. And Beth, I'm not going to take a, Standiford? Well, it was close. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you. I'm Beth Standiford, representing the Conservation Society of San Antonio. I think you all are well acquainted with the exceptional significance of the Institute of Texan Cultures building and our SAL designation, or request for designation. Since UTSA continues to request demolition, and their representative stated at the July meeting that UTSA does not support the SAL designation, we would like to make the following points. The university's primary mission is to provide educational services. Relocating the ITC museum eliminates the need to clear the site for an educational use. Demolition to facilitate a sale uses state money and procedural privilege to shield the buyer from local preservation ordinances and precludes the buyer's exploration of preservation options. The state budget gave UTSA annual funds for the maintenance of the ITC building. Deferred maintenance, according to their report, ranges between $7 million and $62.5 million. Yet UTSA has no obligation to rehab the building prior to its sale. Demolition will cost Texas taxpayers at least $10 million. SAL designation does not create inflexibility of use. UTSA chose to enter into an agreement with the City of San Antonio instead of publicly marketing the property. An Architectus report identified 6 categories of potential uses, including 11 types of entertainment destinations. These are compatible with city plans for an entertainment district, minus the construction of a highly speculative sports arena that thus far is not popular with the people of San Antonio. The state, and not the UT system, built the Texas Pavilion and put legal protections in place. Senate Bill 166 of 1965 states that following the hemisphere, the Texas State Exhibits Building will be used to house permanent exhibits or such additional and alternate uses as the legislature may direct. The 1969 warranty deed from the city to the state stipulates that the state will maintain a Texas State Exhibits Building thereon and or make other state of Texas uses of the premises that will be attractive to visitors. Alternative use of the building by the state is allowed, as witnessed by the university's management of it, but it appears to be the legislature who should be directing it. Demolition is an action and not a use. If a legal opinion from the Attorney General's office has not been sought on whether these legal requirements remain in force, we believe the people of Texas deserve one. We also deserve to have this commission critically weigh the permanent loss of a Texas treasure against UTSA's claim that demolition is the only feasible option. Please help your sister state agency at this time when they need your expert guidance to protect our statewide heritage. The Conservation Society stands ready to assist with exploring preservation options for this iconic Texas landmark. Thank you.
Thank you. Jim, we'll be dealing with, where are you?
Jim's down all the way down here.
Oh, you're hidden down there. Yeah, we'll be dealing with this.
Yes.
Yep. All right. Beth from San Antonio. That was her, sorry. I think that's it on public comments. Joseph, these are our new what?
These are the annual ornaments that we're beginning. They're modeled after what's occurring at the Capitol. So this is our first year.
So this is our annual first.
Our annual first. And this is Fulton Mansion for those that.
Well, thank you for that. I want to also provide thanks to Garrett and Julie Donnelly. Great hospitality. There you are. Thank you for everything here, please. And to those from the Pecos Trail, thanks for your hospitality, the events, welcoming. I think on behalf of the commission, we'll hurry up and get back here if you all keep that kind of hospitality going. Thank you. Did you have any comments on the trip?
No, I want to thank everyone for all the hospitality. It was a wonderful evening.
And let's see, we'll move. We have the presentations, and I would only ask that we try to keep these tight. First, from the Alamo Trust, our update on the Alamo. For the record, please introduce yourself and title. We know, but we got
Yes,
to
sir.
do the record.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Chairman Brousseth, Commissioners. I'm Kate Rogers, Executive Director of the Alamo Trust, and with me this morning, I don't know where he went, is Patrick Gallagher of Gallagher and Associates. There you are. So we will keep this brief in the essence of time, but just wanted to give you an update this morning on all of the progress that is now underway at the Alamo, thanks in large part to your partnership and support. So you'll see from the images we have for you this morning, if you've not been down there recently, the construction is, it's okay, I can click it. There we go. So this is the map of the entire site. As you all know, you have permitted now construction on the Education Center, which is underway. Plaza de Valero, the entrance to the old mission, is actually almost complete, will complete before the end of the year. The Visitor Center Museum is also underway now. Next up for construction, once we complete Plaza de Valero, will be the promenade. So this is the connection of Alamo Street down to Commerce Street to the south. About 30% of our visitors come this way. This will also be where visitors will experience the sculpture trail of important Texans that will connect the Briscoe Western Art Museum with the Alamo and vice versa. Here you see on the left, we have construction images of what's happening right now. This, of course, just to level set, Plaza de Valero sits directly in front of the Menger Hotel. And what you're seeing on the right are the finished renderings, lots of progress happening right now, and that pavilion will be where we do community programming moving forward for 4th of July, for Veterans Day, for commemoration, all the many things we do. Mission Gate and Lunette is now completely done. Jim Bowie was just placed in his permanent location, which would have been outside of the low barrack. Yeah. There you see him there. And so this space is now completely finished and open to visitors, and it's been very well received. Thank you to Kathy, who actually came down for the opening of our new augmented reality experience inside the Long Barrack. This is using technology to inform visitors about how the structures at the Alamo, including the church and Long Barrack, have been modified over time and used by different people for different purposes, such as the general store, the convento, etc. So it's been exceptionally well received, especially with young visitors, because it really helps them to understand the history. You also think historically, people have spent somewhere between 30 minutes to an hour at the Alamo. Average length of time for this experience is 75 minutes. That's how much time people are spending learning the content. So thank you again, Kathy, for coming down. Texas Cavaliers Education Center, also under construction, scheduled to complete by the end of the year. And I would just like to say a huge thank you to the staff of the THC, Elizabeth, Brad, Sheena, many others who visit us on a regular basis. And when we do encounter challenges or questions, especially regarding archaeology, they're exceptionally responsive and helping us to keep moving forward. This gives you a sense of what's going to be inside the Education Center, and Patrick's going to walk you through the galleries at the museum as well. Again, we have multiple learning spaces for different ages of children, including an early learner space. We've got the orientation theater, the Lego diorama, 50,000 bricks to help children understand the complete Alamo compound. So lots of wonderful learning spaces. And then the Visitor Center Museum officially kicked off construction on October the 1st. It was a very nice bipartisan moment during this election season. We had the mayor, the county judge, as well as Lieutenant Governor and Commissioner Buckingham were all in attendance. This means that selective demolition, soft demolition, is virtually complete, and the bracing for the facades will actually go in place this month, November. And then inside, I'm going to hand it over to Patrick to walk quickly through the galleries because we're now in final design for the interior of the gallery spaces, which is very exciting, and those are coming to fruition as well.
So I'm happy to report that we are clearly making incredible progress with the museum space and all the collections and interactivity and multimedia all under production at this point. We're interviewing museum fabrication firms within the next few weeks, so we'll have a fabrication partner underway so that that work can begin in parallel with the construction of the building. This is a view into the lobby and into the bookstore, and what you're seeing on the lower level is the redefinition of the mission wall. So the wall will be defined all the way through the public space. That is free to the public, so they can come in and experience that. It'll have artifacts, as well as a series of historic recreated sculptures of figures that represent all the major periods of time that are represented in the museum, and those are underway right now in a studio in New York, and it's an incredibly impressive thing to see. So if you're in New York sometime and want to see one of the most amazing art installations, please let us know. This is a view in the cafe. We are restoring this mural, and that will be a major feature in this double height volume space and will be part of the character of what we're doing in regards to reinterpreting and engaging with public art. This is a view of the Civil Rights Exhibition. The Civil Rights Exhibition is tracking the same as the Museum and Visitor Center, well underway. We have a representative footprint of the original lunch counter. This lunch counter will actually be an interactive lunch counter. So we're putting it right over the footprint of the existing lunch counter and telling the story of the lunch counter movement in San Antonio.
Explain that.
Explain the lunch counter?
Yeah.
The lunch counter footprint we found in the original tile of the floor. So we're now recreating the same footprint, and then we're making the entire top of the lunch counter an interactive for learning and education.
And the visual will be that?
Mm-hmm.
Good, okay.
So as they engage with that, there's also a back wall projection, which is a part of a theater experience as well. So we're trying to make the best use of a very tight space to tell a very important and rich story.
That's great.
And then the 4D theater, again, also well under production. This is going to be a signature experience. It's a ticketed experience for the visitors. It's a very large surround theater with multi-layered screens and actually articulated seats and an articulated sound system that will take visitors through the drama of both the site and the battle and represent, again, all the major periods of time represented in the museum, but in a very different and an emotional way.
Patrick, how long do you see that?
I think our run time is about 25 minutes.
Good, thank you.
So it'll be cycled all day. You'll have to make a reservation to get your ticket. You can cycle through it at any time. And then just a quick walk through some of the galleries. This is the Indigenous Habitants Gallery. And again, we're working carefully to tell the long and important 300-year history of this site and the people that occupied this site, and doing it in ways that are both supported by the now very rich collections that the Alamo has, as well as dynamic interactivity for different levels of engagement and more in-depth engagement. Here's the Mission Era Gallery, and you can see that in the center of that gallery we have a major interactive. It's an interactive that's structured around the well, which would have been a central part of the mission itself. And then the lower gallery, you see some of our more significant artifacts that are going to be both leading the visitors through the space, but helping to enhance the engagement with the story. Mexican Rule and the Texas Revolution Gallery, we're working to try to use as much of not just the collection, but the scenic character of the period of time, so you can feel as you move through time how the story evolves, how the people who were part of that story are then supported with what we're interpreting in the collections. And then the Battle Theater experience, there will be a full surround experience that's an immersive theater for the events of the battle. You can see a rough schematic of that on the lower level. We want visitors to understand what not only the drama, but the chaos of the events of the battle. So it will be projected both in front of you, above you, and all around you. And then the post-battle gallery really gets into much more detail about the events, all the individuals involved. We will be bringing the big model that's currently in the collection center back here. It also has a light animation show, so you can see how the troop movements happened across the site. We've got an extensive collection of weaponry and uniforms, and that'll be, again, part of the support. The Frontier Post Gallery is really that transformative moment of when the mission and the fort changed as part of the evolution of history. So we're transforming it now into what would have been the Army era and looking at the evolution of this and its impact on San Antonio. And then we've got a number of different places where we recognized people who saved the Alamo. So the Driscoll story is up in the upper right-hand corner of that rendering, and we've got a number of pieces of their furniture. Clara Driscoll's desk is in there. So we're really giving context to how the Alamo was saved and how it became part of resident history for Texas. And then our long-term legacy gallery looks at how the Alamo really affected all of us and the nation through popular culture and storytelling. So we've got both incredible collections, but also all the film and multimedia over time where the Alamo was the subject of the story. So we really have an opportunity for people to reach back into their memories of the things that they saw as a child or the things that impacted them. The Lieutenant Governor is particularly interested in this gallery because it had such impact on his life. And then our last gallery is What Does the Alamo Mean to You? This is an interactive opportunity for our visitors to leave their memories of the Alamo, and it adds to a very large digital tapestry that becomes part of the memory of all the individuals that have gone through the museum, and they leave that as part of what we're considering their story of the Alamo.
Are there any questions, commissioners? All right, I have one. More than one occasion, I have had visitors ask, how does this look, the Alamo at the time of the battle, the footprint in the city today? Is there a representative, the only way I can figure to do it's almost a diorama.
It is, only it's a digital diorama. And so it literally, and so Patrick's team has been working on it. It literally shows you the buildings actually look like they're coming up out of the ground and vice versa as the site changes over time. And it's in the Preservation Era Gallery, sir.
So it's part of the visit. That's what you're saying?
Yes.
And if you came to the site, you can actually see the representation of the mission walls through the south gate. There'll be a north gate representation, and in the landscape, you'll be able to follow all the way through and around and into the building. So the mission walls actually go right through the center of the lobby. So you will be able to get a physical representation.
Yeah, I've tried to
of the site.
explain to visitors the outer, quote, wall and its footprint. It's kind of tough unless you've got a visual, so that's good.
And we'll have multiple dioramas on display throughout the various galleries that will also help with that understanding.
Perfect.
Yes, sir.
I have a question. Will the site where Travis fell be marked?
Yes, so that's what we call the North Gate interpretation. It's one that is still early in the design phase, and so we haven't really brought it forward yet, but yes, that is part of the plan.
And the other one?
Will be closed, so
Yeah.
that'll be part of a pedestrian link that ties them.
Great. I noticed you mentioned Clara Driscoll. How about Aldina de Zavala?
Yeah, Idina, so we have more objects from Clara at this time, but we're actively working on securing objects, a portrait of Idina, so that we can tell the full history of both ladies and their importance to saving the Alamo. And with that, the final point I'd like to make is that in addition to all the physical construction, what our team has really been focused on is the collection. So we've done a public call for artifacts for the pop culture gallery that Patrick alluded to. We've had collectors from all over the country, New Jersey, Chicago, New Mexico, who've come forward with amazing collections they'd like to see on display at the Alamo. So just in the last year, we've added over 1,000 objects to the collection, spanning from indigenous era all the way up to present day. So great work happening on that front too, and just want to again thank the commission for your tremendous support in making all of this possible.
Thank you.
This is what I think it is. Bravo.
Uh-oh.
Any discussion of the Alamo
Oh, wow.
each of you
Thank you.
and all the
Thank you.
commissioners are getting them right now.
Okay.
And you're a
Asked
chick.
you about Halloween costumes last night. There you have it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Where's Ben Parker when we need him?
Telling you.
All right. Thank you for your work.
Get it on.
We are the Pavilion Institute of Karina Green, UTSA. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me. I'm here with Jason King, who is our general counsel at UTSA. He'll be providing some updates as part of the presentation. We'll be as brief as possible. We just wanted to have the opportunity to remind the commission of a lot of the work that we've done over the past 3 years in really being thoughtful about studying. About studying the best possible pathway forward for the Institute of Texan Cultures, the museum, and preserving that culture and heritage. We first focused our efforts on a community engagement just around the vision of the future of the museum. We spent a little over a year in conversations with three task forces and a steering committee, as well as receiving 3 different opportunities for public comment during this time period. Sorry, I'm going too fast. That's the task force portion. They did put forth a report at the conclusion asking us to continue evaluations for 3 possible scenarios for the future of the museum again. As we looked at all of the options, one was remaining in the Texas Pavilion, as well as moving out. We studied other opportunities within Hemisphere. It became very evident that it was very cost prohibitive for us to keep the museum, to maintain its integrity as a museum that could be accredited in the existing structure. And therefore, we did give you the update, I believe last October, and then again in April, that we did decide to vacate the property and look at other opportunities for the museum itself. Our preferred site at the moment is close to the Alamo. You just heard about all of the amazing things that the Alamo is doing, and we want to be a part of what they're doing with the visitors that they attract and be able to really highlight Texan culture as part of the experience adjacent to the Alamo. We do continue to have conversations with the Alamo Trust and with the GLO around whether or not we can participate should they be successful in acquiring that property. In the meantime, we did temporarily close the museum. We are working on an archive storage facility that will be open to the public. It will be outfitted with state-of-the-art air conditioning, humidity controls to keep the contents of the ITC safe during this transitional period. Yes, sir.
Where would that be?
This is out closer to main campus. It's about halfway in between over off of Eckert Road, so just around 1604 from main campus. We are going to begin to move our archives and all of the exhibits and artifacts in November, and we plan to have all of that out by the end of this year. We'll continue to look at the other contents that are not part of the collections themselves. We have been working on the design of the new temporary museum space that will be in the Frost Tower just downtown. We've been working with Gallagher on how to create an experience in 8,000 square feet for the next 5 years to really keep that alive and really look at how we can highlight different cultures through activities, through food and culture, through crafts, through community engagement. And so we're really excited about curating this space. We will be bringing some of the artifacts into the space and creating a robust digital experience just to continue telling that story as we move forward with construction of the new facility. With that, we turned our efforts and focus, now that we have a pathway forward for the museum itself, back to the Texas Pavilion and how we can reutilize that property for its highest and best value. All of that property will go to support the new museum in its new location. And so it's very important that we're able to not only honor and document the historic structure, but also to think about how we can use the highest value of that property to support the new museum and the future of the ITC. So part of what we've done is we've engaged Ford Powell Carson over the past 6 months to come in and start documenting the building itself. We are doing 3D laser scans, we're doing the HABs documentation, and we're well into all of that documentation with Ford Powell Carson. In addition, I think we mentioned this last time, we also brought in a group before we closed the museum to document fully a digital online experience that we will launch whenever we open the temporary museum space later next year, that will really highlight, people can go in and see the original home of the ITC in the Texas Pavilion and experience and continue telling that story in that building. We also wanted to highlight that the University of Texas system and UTSA are stewards of many historic buildings, a lot of which are part of the Brutalist era. On our core campus, built around the same time as the Hemisphere campus, we do have our 5 core buildings that are of the Brutalist style. We do continue to maintain them, and we're honored to have this legacy on our campus. These were also designed by Ford Powell Carson. And then in Hemisphere, there are remaining examples of the Brutalist style, both with the John Wood Courthouse and with the Women's Pavilion. And we wanted to just touch very briefly on the Women's Pavilion. I know that it is Brutalist style, and the city of San Antonio owns it. It is vacated. It is a beautiful structure, and we have been working with Alamo architects, thinking about ways in which the university and the city might be able to collaborate here in the upcoming future to not only preserve one of the Brutalist buildings in Hemisphere, but also to maybe highlight our digital archive experience and really make that something that's special and a nod back to the Texas Pavilion. We did start to study the report, pardon me. As we studied the pavilion and the key findings from the report, as we've identified before, it does have $12 million worth of existing deferred maintenance, $62 million worth of upcoming failing systems. There are environmental issues in the building currently, including asbestos and mold, and we have failing systems across the board. And so thinking about that, it was what encouraged us to relocate the museum, but we also wanted to use that information as we looked at opportunities to potentially use this building as an adaptive reuse. I know there have been questions. We have met with the Conservation Society several times, with your staff as well, talking about whether or not the building could be used. And we wanted to really fully evaluate that before we made the decision to move forward. Yes, sir. 1 minute? If that's the case, I'd like to bring Jason up and skip past the adaptive reuse credits and turn it over to Jason. The temporary archive facility or the permanent location? Yes, so the permanent location, we are only going to leave it downtown. It will not be out close to, if the site close to the Alamo is not successful, then we are looking at property that we own downtown, including the Southwest Campus, our San Pedro block, and additional possibilities within Hemisphere. Yes, sir. Yes, absolutely. Across from Casa Navarro. We have considered that. We have studies on that as far as foot traffic, and I believe when we looked at a few different sites, that ranked up there pretty high in foot traffic, especially in the future with all of the activity that's going to be happening over there. And so, yes, it's absolutely a site that we will consider if the Alamo does not work out as successful. If it's okay, I would like Jason just to touch on the State Antiquities Code for things that you could consider during your motion in a little bit.
I can do this in 2 minutes, absolutely. All right, thank you all for having me. This is going to be the speed tour. I want to talk about process. Karina was able to talk about substance. The process for a higher education SAL designation is fundamentally different from a standard SAL designation. What you typically do is on the screen, right? Step one is the property, for lack of a better way to put it, historical? Is it historical enough to deserve an SAL designation? Step two, does the property retain its integrity, right? Is it still there enough that it deserves preservation? And then finally, is it on the National Register of Historic Places? I don't want to minimize how difficult this analysis is. I know it's hotly contested, but it's essentially two factors. Is it historical? Does the building retain integrity? And you make that determination based upon a preponderance of the evidence standard, right? Which way are you leaning? For higher education, and again, it lives in a different section of the Antiquities Code, and this is paraphrased because statutes are not designed for PowerPoint. You have 4 additional factors when you're dealing with higher education. Number one, you need to weigh the fact that UTSA's primary mission is the provision of educational services to our citizens. Right? The standard analysis is just about the building. When you're dealing with higher education, you need to consider that we have a primary job to do, and that primary job is educating our citizens. You also need to understand that there's a second board out there, right? The Board of Regents has been looking at those very issues since inception. They've been allocating resources towards our mission since 1969 when we started. Third, you are required to weigh whether the benefit of SAL designation outweighs the inflexibility of use that designation creates. Karina wasn't able to get to it, but the closest we can possibly get with adaptive reuse has an $82 million gap. We can make it work, we just need $82 million additional dollars. Thank you. Finally, the cost of remodeling or restoration may be so great as to impair the proper use of funds designated by the state for educational purposes. In this case, UTSA has 35,000 students. We have critical needs across the empire and critical opportunities to enhance education. We don't have the funds in this case. Finally, and this is in the statute, whereas your ordinary SAL designation relates to which way are you leaning, right? Preponderance of the evidence. For an institution of higher education, your burden of proof is higher if you want to designate. A building should only be designated under a clear and convincing evidence standard. Don't take my word for it. The Fifth Circuit defines it. Clear and convincing evidence is that evidence that produces in your mind a firm belief or conviction on the matter at issue. In essence, a tie goes to UTSA, and even more than a tie, you must be firmly convicted if you wish to have an SAL designation for higher education. I hope that was 3 minutes.
Exactly that, in regards to when we were looking at projects that have come from the university, realizing that the mission of the institution takes precedent, its value as it meets, and its ability to be able to fulfill that mission, and then be able to do an overall assessment of the analysis that the institutions have done to really make sure that you've vetted through the process. We've done that in the past, and we've worked diligently with the universities to make sure that when we do come to a conclusion, that we are comfortable that every effort has been made, that the decisions that are being made is in the best interest of the student body and to be able to meet the overall operational needs of the university as you move forward and to meet your business needs.
And we appreciate your care and thoughtfulness.
And for the record, that rule was in place long before most of us were on the commission. So it's our job to follow it and enforce it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioners, any other questions?
I just had, I guess, a question for the group at large. My understanding is that the intention is that the building would be sold, and so where does that leave this special consideration of potential SAL landmark designation for a building that the university doesn't own? Do the different evaluation criteria shift? That I just don't even know how to, it's such an unusual circumstance, I don't know quite how to proceed.
Go, because go ahead.
I will just comment that part of our studies, we're not certain that it will be sold. It could retain as property that we would monetize through privatized development. It will not be for mission use. But the ability to sell the property with the building standing is much higher challenge than trying to sell or lease. Lease is probably our preferred path forward, so that we can retain this in our portfolio as we move forward. So the designation, I think, and I can let Jason weigh in on it, those considerations, you are considering it right now because it is a burden to the university, and there's no ability, no certainty that we would have ability to not own the property. It just won't be used for mission use any longer. I don't know if that helps.
And it was my understanding that it's the financial benefit of the property and the ability to reinvest those proceeds into the mission of the university is a criteria that we look at.
Correct, yes. So those dollars will be used towards our mission use, specifically 100% towards the future of the ITC Museum.
Lori, did that answer your question?
It provided me some additional information. I think it's still going to be a struggle.
Oh, no question about that. Any other questions?
John,
Yes.
do you want us to hold more questions that we have until the action item comes up in that discussion?
Are you all going to be here?
Yes,
for the
sir.
rest?
Yes, we will be
Okay.
here.
Yes, please.
Okay.
Thank you. We'll move to 3.3, the Levi Jordan project. Is Sam here? Hey, Sam. Sam Collins, ladies and gentlemen.
Good morning. Chairman Now and TAC Commissioners, thank you for the opportunity to update you about the Levi Jordan project. I'm the co-chair of the advisory committee, along with Dr. Ronald Goodwin from Prairie View. As a seventh-generation Texan with roots back to 1837 in Brazoria, it is an honor and privilege to serve on the committee. Our committee currently has 10 members, including 2 from the Friends of the THC. And before I go any further, I would like to acknowledge the work of the THC staff at both Levi Jordan and Varner Hogg plantation sites. They continue the work of saving the real places that tell the real stories of Texas. Growing up in Texas, I learned about the father of Texas, Stephen F. Austin, and the mother of Texas, Jane Long. I was taught about the old 300 and to remember the Alamo. We took school field trips to the San Jacinto Monument to learn about the great state of Texas. While the stories that we were taught were real stories, they were incomplete. The Levi Jordan plantation site presents a unique opportunity for THC in the state of Texas to tell the rest of the story. In the October 2024 issue of Brazos Monthly, produced by the Facts newspaper in Brazoria County, THC staff member Reese Black writes about unearthing history on plantations. Not only are we discovering the artifacts hidden beneath the Texas soil, but we are mining the cultural currency that will help finance the future of preservation work in Texas. The cultural currency is the story of what made Texas, Texas. I have limited time today, but I want to share a few examples of the work being done as part of the project. On July 27th, I met with descendants of Pendleton Johnson in Sweeney. From that meeting, I was able to work with genealogist and researcher Sharon Baptiste Gillens. She produced a report that spans 130 years from 1839 to 1969. Pendleton Johnson was born in 1846. And through Sharon's research, we were able to discover his parents were owned by James Fannin and Joseph Mims. Fannin died in 1836, but his estate was not settled until December 8, 1839. And the deed records list D'Amato and Shacko as property co-owned with Joseph Mims. D'Amato was valued at $400, and Shacko, with her 2 children, unnamed, were valued at $800. In addition to the work Sharon Gillens completed, I also traveled to Austin to the General Land Office to review maps of Brazoria County, the state of Texas, and the United States. 2 that were of particular interest to me were the 1856 Reynolds political map with 1850 census records on it, and the 1861 slave population map with 1860 census records. The family history snapshot expands the narrative of our Texas history by going to primary source documents. The Pendleton Johnson family story is as important to building Texas, and their contributions are as important as Fannin and Mims. Pendleton Johnson registered to vote on August 1st, 1867, and records that he had lived in Texas and Brazoria County for 21 years. On the line above Pendleton's name is Joseph Thompson, one of my 4th great-grandfathers, and he had been in Texas and Brazoria County 30 years. Another example of the work we are doing is our latest community meeting, which was held September 21st. Commissioner Donnelly was in attendance. Maya Ford and her team at Ford Momentum this week issued an executive summary of what we heard. And unfortunately, we were not able to get it to you before the meeting, but THC staff can provide a copy to the commissioners. We have had great private meetings with individuals and families, but we do face some challenges. Attendance at our community meetings have been limited because many residents still have negative feelings and are dealing with the trauma related to the plantation sites and the horrors of what happened at those locations. The committee and community also want to know, when will we begin construction on the museum? I understand that we need to work with Prairie View and see how our project can complement what they will be building on their campus. We have several sites related to Texas history in 1836, including the Alamo, San Felipe de Alston, Washington on the Brazos, and San Jacinto. We have the resources and ability to support both Levi Jordan Plantation and the Prairie View Museums. There are many stories related to the African American story in Texas, and we need multiple locations to tell those stories. As Mr. Gallagher mentioned earlier, he's working and making the most of a very tight spot in San Antonio with the lunch counter example, but in Brazoria, we have plenty of space for his team to tell the story. So the community is looking for the commission to help fund the project to get the museum built. I spoke earlier this summer with the chairman, And I told him, I have 4 children. And if I had $300, I could give 3 of them $100 and leave one with nothing. But I wouldn't do that. And while each child may not get $75 equally, because they may have different needs, I would not leave out any of them. I would not invite them to the table to see all the food that is present in the resources and not allow them to share those resources on the table. So while we may not be able to get all of the funding that we can in this cycle, I would ask that the commission consider just taking a portion of what has been allocated for some of those other sites, because I've seen 100 million, 200 million numbers. We only need 35. We just need a little 35. So at this time, thank you for the opportunity to speak to you. If you have any questions, there are other staff members. If I can't answer, hopefully we can get those questions answered. But again, thank you for the opportunity. Instead of getting you to focus on the slide, I truly wanted you to focus on the message that this is a Texas history story. The contributions of those stories and individuals that we are finding are just as important to Texas history, and we want to make sure that we do the story, tell the real stories of the real places and of the real people. Don't be shy. You have some questions.
Thank you.
I have a comment, obviously, but I'll ask, are there any questions?
Chairman, I have a comment.
Please.
Thank you for the presentation. I recollect the other day at the Friends Gala, I had invited State Representative Cheryl Cole. And Representative Cheryl Cole is very active in the Black Caucus. And she did ask me, had shown her interest, how can I help tell the untold story? And also the former state representative, Helen Giddings, had shown interest. So perhaps that's an area that you may want to look into. And Juan certainly is a great leader here who can give you some input on that.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for that comment. Chairman.
Sam and I, we've gone to Galveston. We've talked a lot about this. The agents, just so the general public and the commissioners are reminded, we were heading down the road of putting together an appropriate visitor center with multiple messages. That's when we learned about legislation that required anything dealing with slavery to go through Prairie View. Joseph and I have met with the president of Prairie View. I have another meeting in the next couple of weeks, and it is clear to them that this is a joint effort. Please take that to your committee. This agency is committed to making certain that the story is told. We just simply have to work it through Prairie View, and I've run into no resistance yet because they have a similar story. Prairie View's on a former plantation, but they have the same type of cemetery situation that we have there. So I see it not as a stop sign. I see it as a little bit of figuring out how to do this in a partnership. And Sam, not just your passion, your knowledge helps us get the job done right. So thank you.
Yeah, the work that we all do, my children are 8th generation Texans, are to make sure this Texas home is here for future generations. You know, when you buy a home, if it has a leak in the roof, we don't have time to argue about who put the roof on 30 years ago. It's our job today as owners and on the deed of the home today to fix the roof, to rewire the building, to replumb the building, so that this home will be here for future generations. So as we work to tell the real stories that have been left out of our history books, and we work to tell this Texas history, we're keeping this home, our Texas home, here for future generations. So we all do this work together. Thank you, Chairman and Commissioners, for the opportunity to speak to you, and I look forward to us having a ribbon cutting in Brazoria at our new museum.
Thank you, Sam.
We'll be there.
I, for one, don't want to get in Sam's way. Authentic Texas, Margaret is here.
Good morning, Chairman Now,
Good morning.
Director Bell, Commissioners and friends and staff. And Mr. Collins, our publication would be interested in helping you tell this story. I am the CEO and the publisher of Authentic Texas. Stephen?
And I'm Stephen Lyons. I am Director of Design and Business Development for Authentic Texas.
And we come before you today with some really exciting news. In fact, we have several pieces of exciting news to share with you today regarding the operation of Authentic Texas. The Texas Heritage Trails LLC was established in 2012, and it was the result of training provided by the agency to the directors of the Heritage Trails program at that time. So we established an LLC in 2012, and our first product, the Authentic Texas magazine, began publication in the spring of 2016 with our good friend and Commissioner Tom Perini gracing the cover. Issue 30 is in production and it will be released in November. We endured a lot of challenges over the last several years, and COVID was one of those that brought to the forefront many numerous challenges, but most significantly the challenge of our business model. AT, Authentic Texas, is a for-profit enterprise owned equitably by 5 nonprofits. Those 5 nonprofit organizations are the Texas Brazos, Forts, Pecos, Plains, and Mountain Trail regions. The LLC has never had a majority owner. As such, we do not fit the mold. We are a unique animal. We know we are blazing a trail in the nonprofit world and in the heritage tourism world. However, we are definitely a square peg trying to fit in a round hole in the business world because of that because of our situation with the ownership. So we do not qualify for small business development loans or financing with banks, and in 2020, when we suffered a 76% loss of revenue, we did not qualify for any COVID relief programs, assistance programs, etc. In the meantime, lastly, our nonprofit owners have limited options for capitalizing the business. They have bought in using funds of their own. Obviously, no state funds that they receive as members of the program can be used for investment in this business, and there are expectations, naturally, that any funds that they raise would go to their operations, to their programming, and to their services. So we have struggled with this quandary for several years, trying to figure a way forward. Yet, with all these challenges, the LLC is now in its 12th year, and Authentic Texas is in its 8th month of publication, or 8th year, pardon me. Today, I'm pleased to announce a shift in leadership. Number 1, as I announce my retirement. While I am stepping down from my current role as CEO, I will remain involved in the operation and with the magazine as a part-time consultant, editor, and writer. It's been an honor to lead this organization, and I look forward to remaining part of it in a new capacity. It's my honor to announce Authentic Texas enters a new chapter of leadership with the majority acquisition by Adaptable Space, a marketing and design consultancy firm now dedicated to preserving Texas history through Authentic Texas. Stephen Lyons, CEO of Adaptable Space, brings nearly 30 decades of creative and branding expertise to the table. He's come alongside us for the last 5 years in the creative vision as design director. He also served as the design director for our official Texas Rangers Bicentennial Guide. He has become a valued and integral member of our team. He is passionate about the Trails program. He is passionate about Texas history, collecting, curating, and sharing the real, the authentic stories about Texas heritage and culture. And he's also passionate about the original intent of the LLC to provide revenue to the owner regions. I will turn it to Steve now.
Thank you, Margaret, and thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Commissioners, for this time. So due to these challenges the LLC and its nonprofit owners face, and because I believe in our mission goals of Texas historic preservation, I believe this market and the substantial interest in it is more than sufficiently large enough to support these efforts. And because I believe in the potential and the execution of this product, I, through Adaptable Space, am acquiring majority ownership of Authentic Texas, Texas Heritage Trails LLC. The new operating agreement I put forth retains the 5 Heritage Trail region organizations, the Forts, the Plains, Pecos, Mountain, and Brazos, as minority owners to fulfill the original business goals from the inception of the LLC, which is to provide additional revenue streams for those trail regions. Adaptable Space is acquiring ownership through previous investments in the business, as well as providing additional capital to acquire the necessary resources needed to build a growing media business. This new ownership arrangement gives me the opportunity to pursue the other 5 trail regions who are not owners to present a mutually beneficial agreement of editorial support, promotional support, and potential new revenue opportunities as non-owners. The overall goal in this is to provide a strategy and mechanisms that would potentially unify and benefit the trail regions as well as the program as a whole. I'll be working to further develop the relationships with our editorial partners, the THC, the Texas State Library and Archives Commission, and the Texas Historical Foundation, while we celebrate our newest and final editorial partner in the Texas State Historical Association, which will be announced in our upcoming edition. And that brings a unified heritage, cultural, and historic platform together in preservation. And this is our competitive distinction from other statewide publications. Additionally, in order to bolster revenue, we will begin converting all the current free distribution receivers into resellers, which also provides an opportunity for revenue generation for each reseller. Additional work is focused on cutting expenses while professionalizing the organization, investing in new product funnels and content, starting a new merchandise and community marketplace, building a heritage and history online community, providing a storytelling course for communities and preservation entities, development of regional events and tours, and also working on our future strategy to focus more on podcasts, social media, and video to specifically reach out to younger generations and bring them into the interest and work of preservation of Texas history.
Stephen?
Yes, sir.
About 30 seconds. Okay.
Yes, sir. I'm almost done, sir. We've already begun many of these initiatives. One of them is a 30-second commercial that is currently running on national cable. You can find that on our YouTube channel, and I believe we'll be sending out a link to all of you this afternoon. And we're excited about these changes in structure and strategy as a now group of owners. We would like for the THC to be a bigger promotional partner of Authentic Texas and support our efforts to grow our reach and impact in the heritage, cultural, and historic preservation market. We really appreciate your time this morning, and thank you.
Well, thank you both. Margaret, obviously, we appreciate the years, the effort, the focus on the mission of the THC and heritage tourism. So on behalf of the commission and me personally, thank you for what you've done, and in handing the ball off, we look forward to working with Stephen. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's been an honor.
Thanks. Okay. Angeli, how much money we have? Let's get down to
Never enough.
Never.
All right.
Angeli, we are running tight.
Yes, sir.
So
I will speed through. Just a quick overview of fiscal 2024, which we ended on August 31st. It was another strong year. We had over $1.75 million in individual gifts, foundation grants, and federal funding for projects and programs, including Catamounts, and I'll talk a little bit more about that.
Real Places Conference, where we raised over $337,000 in revenues, including, actually, it was $157,000 in sponsorships and exhibitor fees, plus registration fees. We raised money for the Archaeological Sites Atlas internship. We raised money for 7 preservation scholars, and of course, continued support for the Courthouse Stewardship Program. In addition to the fundraising work, we've kind of expanded our scope of services to the THC. We had property acquisitions that we completed for Goodnight Ranch, as well as for Eisenhower Birthplace. The Caddo Mounds I mentioned, we raised actually $800,000 now in grants from the Summerlee Foundation, TLL Temple Foundation, the Urban Joan Keller Charitable Foundation, for the construction of Phase 2. And we have also entered into an agreement with Richter Architects to complete the design and engineering work, which should be done hopefully by the end of this calendar year. Real Places Conference, of course, I mentioned, and then continued work on webinars and virtual events to expand our outreach. For this year, the work that we are doing for Community Heritage Development Division includes continuing to build sponsorship support for Real Places 2025. Phoenix One has come on as a title partner again this year, along with Komatsu Architecture and the Texas Land Title Association. They're both committed as sponsors for 2025. And we continue to work with additional sponsors as well. The Downtown Georgia licensing project, which was a pilot project that the commission had approved for the Friends to pursue, has actually moved into the next phase. We have completed, the vendors have completed the development of the Downtown Georgia platform, which is, the website is right there for you, www.downtownga.com. The partnership on this project is with the Georgia Department of Community Affairs, and they are working now with Main Street communities in their state to build the data on that platform. And that should take another 6 to 8 months for them to sort of go through their Phase 1. And then we are in our first year of hosting and maintenance now with Georgia on this project. So we'll continue to bring reports to you on this. History Programs Division, we have submitted a National Endowment for the Humanities request to digitize close to 17,000 files of historic markers over the last 50 years worth of markers. And the goal is, if we get the funding, the goal is to work with the University of North Texas to upload this data and provide it for research and educational purposes to the general public. So we're really hoping to receive this funding, which will be a substantial project. A decision is expected in April of 2025. As I mentioned, the Eisenhower Birthplace acquisition, we bought a property and we are holding it for the THC, and we hope to transfer the property over to the commission by the end of this year. It's a 1955 home with a detached structure, and the idea is to use that property for additional office / functional space for the site. We did transfer the 2 properties for Goodnight Ranch, a total of 33.89 acres, over to THC. I wanted to thank Chairman Now again for the no-interest loan that allowed us to complete this acquisition. The overall price of this acquisition of the 2 acquisitions together was $1,032,000. The additional funds beyond the $1 million we are raising through a challenge grant from the chairman of $25,000. We had requests to the Tecovas Foundation, which has come through as of last week with a $20,000 grant. So, Mr. Chairman, we will be reaching out to your office to submit that documentation. And then we are waiting to hear back from the Amarillo National Bank. So we hope to raise the challenge plus some to continue supporting Goodnight Ranch. Caddo Mounds, in addition to the funds that we have raised, we are working on a request to the Meadows Foundation, and we have also been invited to submit a concept note, which is step 2, with the Mellon Foundation for this project. They have expressed a lot of interest, so we're really hopeful that we will move forward in that process. We also had a meeting with the James Perkins Foundation at Caddo Mounds the day after our gala, and they have asked us to submit a request. And so we look forward to receiving some funding support from the Perkins Foundation as well. We have, as I mentioned, entered into an agreement with Richter Architects, and we look forward to the potential of working with THC as an implementation partner, as we have done with San Felipe, to complete the construction of Phase 2. There'll be more to come on that at the next commission meeting. Very excited to announce that our gift agreement with the Presidio La Bahia Foundation was signed, and we received the transfer of funds, $1,075,000 from the Presidio La Bahia Foundation, which will build an endowment in support of the site within the Friends of the THC. $40,000 of that transfer will be immediately moved into a fund to provide immediate support to the site for ongoing work over fiscal 2025.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
One more minute?
Yes, sir.
Please.
I'm going to breeze through Washington on the Brazos because I did present this to the committee yesterday. The capital campaign is going well, and there's about $2.48 billion still to be raised, but they're getting close. Taste of Texas Gala, I just wanted to say thank you to the chairman for his presenting sponsorship, to several of the commissioners for their support through the gala. Patrick Gallagher is not here, but Gallagher and Associates also provided support, as did a lot of other sponsors, which we really, really appreciate. We raised some funds, but we had a good time.
Do we send thank you documents, letters?
We are in the process of doing that right now, yes, sir.
It crossed my mind that that's something that I might also sign to say thank you to people. So if you get them structured, Friends, and then the commission, I'll sign them too.
Absolutely, that would be wonderful. Thank you. I am going to breeze through some photographs just to share the fun that we all had. We had about 275 people attending. Of course, several elected officials were there as well. And I want to thank the chairman, Commissioner Dutia, for inviting them. I think exposing everyone to the work that the Friends do in support of the commission is really important. That's a primary goal of this event for us. Teresa is going to share our hot of the presses first annual report of the Friends of the THC. We are really, really excited to share this with you. This is the first time we've been able to put in one document the work that we do in support of the commission, and we would appreciate your review and feedback. This is going to be a standard for us going forward at the end of each fiscal year. Our webinars and virtual events continue. November and December is going to be focused on the holidays and on our historic sites. And then a quick look at our current financials. These numbers, I will say, do not reflect the gift that we have received from the Presidio. So when you see these the next time, they'll be substantially higher. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Questions? Thank you again for everything, and to your board, please express our appreciation.
I will do that. Thank you so much.
You've come an amazing way. Thank you.
Thank you.
I know we have some timing issues, so what I think we'll do with the agreement of the commission is to move to some of the action items in case anyone has to leave right away. So I'll go to, excuse me.
The consent agenda?
Well, we've got that. Jim, would you be able to move right after that on to the 8.2?
Absolutely.
Okay. Go to the consent list. The commission may approve agenda items. Wait a minute, I apologize. We need to do the Holocaust. Yeah. Sorry, my head's moving forward. Can we get this in a couple minutes? I know it's very topical with what's been going on. I don't want to cut it short, but we're running short.
Understood. I'm Joy Nathan. I'm the Executive Director of the Texas Holocaust, Genocide, and Anti-Semitism Advisory Commission. If the name was shorter, we could go a little faster. It's the THGAAC, and my chairman, Ken Goldberg, sends his regrets. He intended to be here, and then his wife, Sherry, fell a little ill, and so anyway, he's in Dallas. We held our last quarterly meeting on September 4th in Dallas, and we reviewed Governor Greg Abbott's executive order, and we talked through Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick's prioritizing of combating anti-Semitism on college campuses. We also heard from State Representative Giovanni Cabriglione, who spoke about legislative support fighting anti-Semitism. The THGAC will issue two legislative reports for the next legislative session. The first is a study on anti-Semitism. It's due November 1st. And the second is a report on the results of a survey on Holocaust Remembrance Week implementation, and that's due December 1st. We're working closely with the governor's office on the final approval of the Anti-Semitism and Holocaust Remembrance Week reports. We will circulate those reports to the Texas Historical Commission before sharing them with the legislature. Again, the due date is November 1st. They're in the governor's office, and once we receive that feedback, we'll share it with you, and we'll share it with the legislature. That's next week. On Tuesday, my chairman and vice chair traveled to Austin and met with Governor Abbott's chief of staff, Robert Black, and other members of the policy and budget staff just to talk through the legislative agenda coming forward. We also met with Phil King, who's been a champion of our commission. We want to acknowledge Governor Abbott for his leadership commemorating October 7th. Our commission coordinated messaging with the governor's office and amplified the Texas legislature commemoration events across the state. The community sincerely appreciated Governor Abbott's proclamation for October 7th, which included flying flags at half-staff and a moment of silence. Chair Goldberg introduced Governor Abbott in front of a crowd of 1,000 at a commemoration in Dallas, as the governor reaffirmed his support and acknowledged the work of the THGAC. I want to thank THC Executive Director Joseph Bell for joining me at the governor's Austin commemoration earlier that day. We're gearing up for Holocaust Remembrance Week, which is January 27th through 31st. We're enjoying a relationship with the TEA, who distributed materials about the resources we have. We also have a new partnership with the Texas Association of Rural Schools, and we're grateful to be able to share more resources across the state. Finally, our Friends is underway. We've distributed the Moody grants. That was $250,000. So we piloted a program at UT Austin, UT San Antonio, and UT Rio Grande Valley. We'll have reports on how that's working in November, and then those projects will be completed in March. And then last, on October 3rd, which was the night before our quarterly meeting, Chair Goldberg hosted a Friends event at his home that raised a little more than $20,000. And I want to thank Vice Chair McKnight and THC Executive Director Joseph Bell for joining us. Also there was Senator Phil King, Senator Tan Parker, State Representative Angela Button, Giovanni Cabriglione, and Morgan Meyer. And finally, our next quarterly meeting is on December 4th in San Antonio.
Are there any questions?
Thank you.
Obviously, it's important work. Thank you.
Thank you, Joy.
Thank you. Okay, we need to take a break, take it, but we're going to keep rolling. Jim?
Yes.
I'm going to do that next. The number 6, the consent items, commission may approve agenda items 6.1 through 6.5 by a majority vote on a single motion. Any commissioner may request that an item be pulled from this consent agenda for consideration as a separate item. Now, commissioners, are there any consent items that you wish to be considered as a separate item? I hear none with no objection. I'll call for a motion to approve agenda items 6.1 through 6.5.
So moved.
We have a motion. We have two
Second.
motions, so I'm assuming we've got a second.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Being none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, that passes. Okay, excuse me. Garrett, the agency services, do you have any to report?
No, sir. We met yesterday. We continue to evaluate the revenue sources and budgeting for the commission.
Thank you. We'll go to 8, Commissioner Brissette. If you deal a short committee report, and then we'll deal with the action item 8.2.
It sounds good. The committee report is we had a good committee meeting, and that's done. Okay, agenda item 8.2 is consider approval of the State Antiquities Landmark nomination for the Institute of Texan Cultures building. And commissioners, at the July 26th meeting of the Antiquities Advisory Board, that board voted to send forward to the commission and recommend approval of the State Antiquities Landmark nomination for the Institute of Texas Cultures building and associated features. It's now time for the commission to consider the designation, and I will ask Charles Hadnick, the Director of the History Programs Division, to give us a very brief summary of the building and its associated features.
Good morning. Bonnie Tipton, our new National Register Coordinator, will actually be giving that very brief presentation. She can answer questions, but just as a reminder, UTSA representatives are here to answer questions as well, and so is Beth Standiford, representing the San Antonio Conservation Society, who submitted the nomination. Bonnie.
Hello. Okay, the Institute of Texan Cultures, originally called the Texas Pavilion, was built in 1968 for the World's Fair in San Antonio. It's located in downtown San Antonio at East Cesar Chavez and IH-37 on 12 acres of land that serves the University of Texas San Antonio's Hemisphere campus. Along with the Tower of the Americas and the U.S. Pavilion, this structure represents one of the showcase properties that anchored the Hemisphere landscape. During Hemisphere exhibits in the Texas Pavilion, educated visitors on the diverse history of the state. Fair organizers commissioned its construction with the additional intent of providing a permanent exhibit space, and after the fair, the building was repurposed for UTSA as the Institute of Texan Cultures. Designed by architects Caudle, Rowlett, and Scott, this brutalist building consists of a three-story inverted pyramid constructed of unfinished limestone aggregate concrete. Earthen berms give the illusion that the building is rising up from the ground. From the rear elevation, you can see the first 2 floors in the Tower of the Americas in the background. Brutalist-style buildings are often large-scale institutional structures elevated from natural surroundings with materials like the waffle slab ceiling you see here and concrete piers that were showcased instead of hidden. The second story has an open plan and displays were arranged by ethnic groups throughout the floor. ITC was originally a windowless building, but 6 were later added to the 3rd floor conference room. Overall, the building and associated landscape retain integrity. The building was listed in the National Register at the state level of significance, making it SAL eligible.
Thank you for the presentation. Commissioners, based upon the recommendation of the Antiquities Advisory Board, I'm going to make a motion. I'll call for a second, and we'll open it up for discussion.
Second.
Well, let me make the motion first.
I'm just in a hurry.
We are focused.
All right. Based upon the recommendation of the Antiquities Advisory Board, I move that the Commission approve the State Antiquities Landmark nomination for the Institute of Texan Cultures, University of Texas at San Antonio, Bexar County. Do we have a second?
Yes, we do.
Okay. And now we'll open it up for discussion. Commissioners? Hearing.
Jim?
Okay, there we go.
Thank you. The heightened factors that were listed in the Antiquities Code looked like they were written by the University of Texas to me. And somehow that formidable body got it passed into the Antiquities Code, and it, I believe, compromises the mission of the Texas Historical Commission. I think it is a weakness in our toolkit. We're supposed to preserve Texas history. That's our job. And we can't do that fully without the statutory responsibility and authority to do that. It saddens me to see those heightened factors, actually. Everybody likes a fair fight, and I don't think we're in one. I think it's important, however, to approve this SAL designation because we stand for Texas history. We don't stand for the University of Texas or any of its affiliates. We stand for Texas history. And that's what I believe we should be doing. Everything we do should be mission-based, and this is a undermining of that ability to pursue our mission. I think we fight, and we fight. If we're going down, we still fight. We don't fold like tacos. We fight. And I know there's probably little we can do here except to ask when the UTSA determines the way to dispose of this building, whether it's through demolition, which I oppose, or some sort of a lease agreement, that it conditions that lease agreement on the preservation of the building in some way that recognizes its historical nature and doesn't turn it into some damn basketball arena. This is kin to the last vote that we took about the university junior high, where a perfectly beautiful historic building that had lives that were lived in it is going to be turned into a football field. I think that is, on its face, is unfair. And particularly with the resources and the other buildings that the University of Texas has access to, where, in my opinion, they could reconfigure something else and continue their mission of education at a high level. Instead, it's going to be a football field. I'm appalled with that notion. And so I guess I'm asking the commissioners here to not fold like tacos, to approve this motion, stand behind it, and be proud as you did.
Any other comments?
Yeah, Jim, let me respond. Number one, we are an instrument of the state. The school, what I'd call the school rule, was done, and we have to enforce it. So I can't disagree with what you just said. The fact of the matter is, it's our job to enforce what we have or go about changing it. You can't change it until the legislative session. All I can say to the audience is that it's now our job, my job, to point this out to leaders in the state. I can't promise an outcome, but I get the message. I feel the same way, but we have to deal with the rules that we have. And that's the strongest statement I can make. So, Jim, go ahead.
Commissioners, any other comments?
Well, I would come back to what we talked about in Tyler at the last commission meeting about this. It eventually is a moot point, unfortunately. I mean, I support saving these things, but this rule is in place, and so I don't know what you want in your taco, but I think you're going to get it. So,
Jim.
Yes.
Just one comment. I'm sorry.
Yes.
I have for many years served on city historic landmark commissions, and we often had cases come before us regarding the prospective demolition of a property. And one basis on which the request for demolition was made was my building is full of hazardous materials, and it will cost me a lot of money to address that. Therefore, I want to demolish my building. As I understand the rules and regulations, handling of the hazardous materials is still an obligation of the building owner, whether the building is restored or demolished. So I just want that to be clearly on the record, that hazardous materials in a building is not, as I understand it, motivation to demolish a building.
Any other comments? Hearing none, I'm going to call for a vote. All in favor of the motion to designate, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Aye. Two opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you very much. And Mr. Chairman, that concludes my agenda item 8.
All right. I'm so prepared for my next stuff, I forgot the list. All right. Jim, you got anything action in archaeology?
No, but I'll say very quickly that my report is we had a very good presentation by Brad Jones on the activities of the Archaeology Committee. And that concludes my report.
Perfect. Commissioner Limbacher, architecture, you've got an action item.
Yes, sir. We didn't have a quorum yesterday, so we had a discussion, and we do have an action item that the committee was not able to act upon, so we bring it to you all today, and Ms. Brummett will explain it to you.
So this is, you're bringing this forward to the full commission?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
Yes, and I apologize that the text here is the committee text and not the commission text. We have an action item to consider supplemental funding or recapture of funding from previously awarded Texas Historic Courthouse Preservation Program projects. The commission will consider supplemental funding to Polk County and the recapture of funds from Willacy County. The commission tabled consideration of funding to Polk County at the July quarterly meeting. Following additional discussions, including an on-site visit with Chairman Now and Commissioner Limbacher and county officials, staff has adjusted the funding recommendation to include an additional work item. And I will just briefly go over what is included in that. Staff recommends funding unforeseen conditions that have arisen during construction at Polk County, including parge coating to replicate damaged historic cast stone surfaces, additional repointing of exterior masonry, replacement of PVC with cast iron piping as required by the local code official, and replacement of the roof. And the roof replacement is the added item at this juncture based on further discussions with the county's architect. That the unforeseen conditions total $1 million, $47,278.73. The Texas Historical Commission's percentage of the total project cost from Polk County's grant application was 47%. So applying that same percentage of match to the supplemental funding, staff recommends that the commission award funding of $492,221. Willacy County received around 9 emergency grants in the amount of $402,900.
So you want to do this as one motion or two?
Two, please.
Yes.
All right.
Go ahead, Laura.
Yes, sir. So we very much enjoyed our visit to the county, and I feel like we had good progress and good discussion, and the significance of this is it will restore their construction contingency. So I will make the motion to move to send forward to the commission, recommend approval of supplemental funding to Polk County in the amount of $492,221, which will require a minimum local match of 53% of the total project cost.
And I would like to have a friendly amendment to that. I'd like to make the amendment to be that move approval of supplemental funding to Polk County in the amount of $492,221, which will require a minimum local match of 53% of the total project cost.
The amendment is made, seconded. Any other discussion? Okay, I'll move, we'll go ahead on a vote. All in favor of the amended motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Okay,
Mr. Chairman, I need to recuse on the next item. My architectural firm has a professional relationship with the county in question.
Okay, thank you.
I'll run it. Go ahead.
Okay, Willacy County received a Round 9 emergency grant of just over $400,000 approved in April 2016. The project was closed out in the summer of 2024. A grant balance of $9,747.70 remains due to the project costing less than anticipated. The final reimbursement has been paid, and the county concurs with this recapture of the remaining grant funds.
That is a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Anybody that doesn't want a recapture, I want to know about it. Okay, now that we have a motion and a second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
Lori, that is your report?
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. We will, because we weren't able to take action, I believe we will try to schedule a special meeting of the Architecture Committee to discuss more fully the item we hoped to discuss yesterday.
Got it. Thank you. Who is?
Community
I've got
Heritage
it.
Development is hiding around here.
Yeah, Mr. Peterson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yesterday, we had a quorum and no action items, unlike many of the other committees. But we did have a discussion about a number of things, and I'm going to let Linda, and not tag teaming, okay. I'm going to let Linda describe things about the First Lady's Tour, Main Street, and a number of other things in a rapid fashion.
Rapid.
It'll be fast. Thank you, everybody. I'm Linda Henderson with the Community Heritage Development Division, and as Mr. Peterson said, we did not have any action items, but we wanted to make sure, especially you, Chairman, now knew about our plans for the First Ladies Tour because you have been interested in it. Because the First Ladies Tours have traditionally been a way to showcase new Main Street communities, and we will not have any until probably the next October commission meeting. So October 2025, we have a proposal to do a First Ladies event in Austin in the spring of 2025 at the Capitol as a way to kind of manage the logistical challenges because she is not able to leave Austin during the session. And this lets us do something close to home, lets us showcase all of the programs that the THC has that go into a successful Main Street community, and lets us recognize some other things about the Main Street program, such as the new First Street Initiative, which is the other thing I wanted to make sure you knew about. And that will set the stage for those new communities to come on board next year so that we can do a traditional tour the following year. So, I'm pausing for questions.
Just clarification, you're talking about an event in Austin, probably at the Capitol or their home, recognizing all the others, the prior, that's not a bad idea, to focus, re-energizing it.
Mm-hmm. Right. So celebrating the history of the Main Street program, the successes all around, and also we can schedule our annual Main Street Manager Retreat around that so we can have them all coming into Austin. I know there's some tricks with the session calendars, but that is what we will, with everybody's support, maybe then approach the First Lady's office and start on those logistical components. And we think it's a great opportunity.
Yes.
And the Friends of the Governor's Mansion might be another group who might want to participate.
Okay. All right, so that is our plan, and then we would have a traditional tour the following year, so in 2026, because we'll have new Main Street communities on board in October. We anticipate you as a body voting on those next October. And because they will have gone through our new initiative that the commission approved us sort of programming over the last couple of years, they will be well suited for a First Ladies Tour. They will have met certain benchmarks and gotten some support in advance of the Main Street process.
Pete, would you make certain I get a good write-up on this idea, the
Yes.
purpose and execution, so I can take it forward to them. Thank you.
Very good.
Yes. On the First Lady's tour?
Yes.
Okay. And so I included slides here for you, but we are going to just go through them. This is just, we're calling it the First Street Initiative. It's the first stop on the way to Main Street. But a community does not have to ever actually pursue Main Street if they are not set up for that in terms of resources or budget, so they can continue to connect with THC and its multiple programs through this initiative. And if they want to apply, they will have met certain benchmarks and will be ready to go into the Main Street program and have success there. So, again, I'm racing through these. They're there in case people have questions. We had a general report on the CHD activities, and all is well. That concludes my report.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Good. I hope you got that while it went.
I did.
But
Thank you.
it was a quick
I
report.
memorized it.
Okay.
I'm certain that the real
I can fill you in.
dates get sent out if they haven't. Mr. Crane, you have a number of action items.
Yes, sir, we have 5 action items, but to begin with, Executive Director Bell will just give us a very brief report.
Yes. Just to give an overview, we're working forward with work at Washington on the Brazos. We've got the design team selection for San Jacinto. We're working with David Hill on the San Felipe de Austin donation. We're working with DNP on finalizing the design firm for the Iwo Jima. The Levi Jordan Advisory Committee, we're working with them, and we're going to be scheduling another community meeting. And then, of course, at the National Museum of the Pacific War, we continue to work with them on the upgrades to the Bush Gallery, as well as continued design work necessary for the portal on Main Street. And then we have some motion items that were reviewed.
Yes, sir, I'm going to read this first motion. Consider approval. Move to accept the Phase 3 assessment for the Slayton Harvey House to become the 40th, can you believe 40th THC state historic site.
Second.
Second, any discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
The next item was tabled, and we'll be bringing that back in January after we work through the details with the university. The next item is with the historic structure, the Infrastructure Sustainability Trust Fund draw, and we've got the detail on the allocation of funds on the next slide, which we have gone through in detail. Caddo Mounds, 1 point.
All commissioners know this.
Oh, you're right.
It's just my apology. Move to approve the list of projects from the Historic Infrastructure Sustainability Trust Fund for FY 2020.
Second.
Motion, go ahead.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right. And then we have the donor recognition plan that Anjali presented, and the motion to approve.
Move to adopt the Caddo Mounds donor recognition pending opportunity. Authorize the Friends of the Historical Commission to use the plan in their capital campaign efforts. And I apologize for not having this on in front of me. Apologize. So that's the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion. Hearing none. We'll vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And then the final is the deaccessioning of a number of items from the McGoffin Home, National Museum of the Pacific War, and Varner Hogg Plantation that was
And
presented.
you wanted
by-
to go through each one of these line by line.
No, no, we don't have time.
But I was excited to see that we can buy things if we want.
I'll make a motion, move to approve the deaccession of items from the McGuffin Home, National Museum of the Pacific War, and the Warner Hall Plantation State Historic Site. That's the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. We'll vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We need to move fast.
Okay.
That concludes my report.
Well done.
Excellent.
And now we have history programs.
We quickly just mentioned a couple of items yesterday, including meetings that we have with staff. Our World War I Centennial book is now available for purchase, so hopefully you'll all purchase a copy of that. We are going to be having a new contract with Eagle Sign and Design, which is our current marker vendor, but we are going to be contracting them for the next 5 years after going through an RFP process. The pricing is going up a little bit, so you'll see us coming before the commissioners asking for an increase of price on our end as well in a future quarterly meeting. Undertold application cycle is currently open. The chairman asked some questions about that, and we are getting some information together about how we've fabricated those and put them in the ground and how many of those we've done in the past year.
Charles?
Yes.
Back on the markers, I would ask that you all consider that we put a price range on it in case we get, we just need to put a range, not an absolute, this is it. And from time to time, we may be forced to adjust it.
That's a great idea. We will do that. We have one motion item today for our 2026 official historical marker plan. We do these a couple of years in advance. Everything is the same in the past plans except that we shift the dates to 2026, and also we present different thematic priorities each time. And there is a motion for you.
Mr. Chair, I'll move to approve staff recommendations for qualified official Texas historical marker applications and adopt a work plan to complete no more than 185 new historical markers in calendar year 2026.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion. A quick comment. Will we then deal with untold story markers, or is that all encompassed here?
This includes undertold markers as well.
Thank you. Any other questions? Being none, call for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Charles, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for the work. All right. John, is that it?
Yeah.
Recognition, that's it?
Executives.
Yep. The executive report, I'm going to cover a number of items that have been going on. You heard about Polk County. There has been an ongoing discussion with Texas A&M at the level of Chancellor Sharp about a Texas A&M museum in Amarillo. A great entry facility from the 1930s. The architecture is spectacular. Their museum, probably the largest paleontology collection that I've seen anywhere. It's dated, needs upgrade. The president of A&M Amarillo has come forward with a design that was a little excessive. They have pulled it back. Commissioner Crane, a local resident from the area, Mr. Bivens, and I met with Chancellor Sharp on a couple of occasions. I would say that this is probably going to begin to move forward in design. The first number that came out was in excess of $400 million. Commissioner Crane fainted, and we have been able to scale it back, but keep it moving.
Control, you wanted to increase it, John.
Yeah, I just, over exuberance, I guess. That is moving. and we'll keep everyone informed, because obviously it's being driven by A&M, but they clearly want this to be a THC managed asset. Number two, within the last couple of weeks, a group of us followed up on the last commission meeting's discussion about the artifacts that are at the Corpus Museum. I'm going to turn it quickly to Joseph with a comment. We're going to have to take some action. It cannot stay the way it is. So, Joseph?
We did an on-site visit with the museum, and we did an overall risk assessment to see exactly where they were with their emergency procedures. The museum is in harm's way if we have a major hurricane. We've got some valuable collection items there. We also looked over the branding that was lacking in regards to that exhibit, and we wanted to make sure that we worked with them, not only with safeguarding the collection, seeing what we can do to work with them to bring that collection to a safer location, and then work with them if any items were remaining to make sure that we have some brand identity there at that museum moving forward. So we've got some work to do. We also have to make sure that we have the space available if we do withdraw any artifacts and bring them to a safer location. But there is a great deal of conservation needs. The collection has been neglected for quite some time, and we're diligently looking and making sure that we have budget so that we can start moving forward, so that we meet our obligation in our treaty with France.
Jim, did you have any? There you go.
Yes, I'd just like to say that I'll be a little more direct. We have two world-class collections there, from the 1554 shipwreck, which was a treasure fleet coming from Mexico to Spain, wrecked off the coast of Texas. Those artifacts are there on the bottom floor of the museum, and probably half of the best artifacts from the LaBelle shipwreck collection are there on display on the first floor of the museum. Right around the corner from where the LaBelle artifacts are two glass doors where, when they get heavy rains, water comes in already from that. The last hurricane in that area put water in the first floor around the doors to the museum. If a major hurricane comes in with a storm surge, it's going to rip open those cases and scatter those artifacts and destroy those artifacts in the first floor of the museum. It's not a potential thing. It is going to happen either in the short term or the longer term. The only thing we can do, in my opinion, is to remove those artifacts to a safer location and work with the museum to try and maybe take back some artifacts that can be displayed in a more secure way possible in the museum.
And it probably is going to require addressing our antiquities code. It's concerning. They are state assets and on loan. So, much more about this over the next few months.
Yes.
Any comments? I'm not looking for an okay. We've got to move on this, and I wanted everyone to be aware. Joseph?
We should step back. We have 3 motion items that need to be processed. We have the MOU with the Friends that we need to take action on, and then the Texas Preservation Trust Fund and the Lockhart. Did we already do those?
No,
That was an exec. It's good call.
All right.
Pardon?
Yes, please. Right.
Yes. Thank you, Joseph. Commissioners, as I described earlier this morning during the executive committee meeting, this is a renewal of the MOU between the Friends of the THC and the Commission with some updates and clearer references to the code that enables us to do the work that we do with the Commission. So the motion is in front of you for your approval.
So I move to approve the amendments as outlined for MOA number 808-24-243-109 with Friends of Texas Historical Commission and authorize the executive director to sign the agreement on behalf of the THC. Any discussion? We have a motion and a second. I'm going to call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Elizabeth?
Yes, we have an item to consider approval of funding recommendations for the Texas Preservation Trust Fund grant program for fiscal year 2025. The projects recommended for funding are shown on this slide with 1 archaeology, 1 heritage education, and 7 architecture projects. We also have 2 projects out of the City of Dallas earmarked funding and 4 projects, 2 architecture and 2 heritage education for the Panhandle area earmark. There are also 12 projects in the architecture category that we feel are very worthwhile that we would recommend for alternate funding should other grants be returned.
Okay, so I move to approve grant awards totaling $365,799.95 for the fiscal year 2025 cycle of the Texas Preservation Trust Fund grant program as per the attached table. Grant awards totaling $96,205 for the City of Dallas earmarked projects as per the attached table. Grant awards totaling $256,382.31 for Panhandle area earmarked project as per the attached table. And delegation of authority to the executive director or his designee to award any funds returned or not utilized to the fund to alternate projects as identified in the attached table in rank order. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, then I will call for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Thank you.
May I ask a question?
Certainly.
Sorry. The project that was in Dallas says a 10th Street commercial building. What is that?
Let me get my notes on that, just so I'm making sure I give you accurate information.
Well, a good lie will do too.
Yes. The property is owned by Southern Dallas Progress. They're seeking a planning grant to fund the creation of construction documents focused on the exterior of this building, which is contributing to a National Register Historic District. And so they'll plan for future rehabilitation of the building.
Thank you.
Okay, so the next is the Lockhart.
Correct.
Yes, and we had quite a discussion of that at the executive committee. So this is because this grant that was an earmark in the last legislative session is generally to provide for the preservation of Rosenwald schools statewide. We are seeking for the commission to formally make this grant award to the Lockhart Rosenwald School in keeping with the legislative intent of Representative Barbara Gervin Hawkins.
So I move to approve a $3 million grant from the Texas Preservation Trust Fund for the preservation of the Lockhart Rosenwald School, Lockhart, Caldwell County, and waive the one-to-one cash match requirement.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any comments? I'll call for a vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Elizabeth.
Thank you.
Let me make one comment on this. I'm concerned about the idea of earmarking specific funds as opposed to earmarking new money. And can't fix it overnight, but it will become one of our legislative discussion points. All right? Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Joseph?
Is there another slide? Next slide. All right, this is just a list of new employees. We've employed 24 individuals over the last 3 months. The majority of them in historic. We had 24 positions have been filled. 15 of them are in historic sites division. So there's actually another slide. There's 3 slides that go over the.
Joseph?
Yes.
What site where is the French litigation site?
It's everywhere.
Where's the French?
Go back.
French.
Go.
I was there just the other evening.
It was a joke.
Oh, okay, okay.
It's just a typo in there.
Oh, is there a typo?
But it's a good one.
Okay. All right.
Good catch.
Yes.
Thank you.
And of course, there's Melissa Blake, our new HR director, who's just been brought on board. And I believe there's another slide. We've got information technology, procurement contract, and of course, then Joy's staff, a new staff member that has been brought on board. All right. If you go back, one more slide, just an overview of activities, some of the major things we're working on right now. We continue our conversation with the LBB on our legislative appropriation request. We had the Historic Sites Managers Committee, and Garrett was there hosting with us. He hopefully had a very good time, even though they did do a little roast for him. We're continuing to work with Texas A&M. We've got an MOU that has been crafted. I've just received feedback. I'm hoping that we can get that completed before we meet with them again. Corpus Christi, we're looking with them. We're going to continue to work with their staff. The Marine Military Academy, we're working with Colonel Dowling just to kind of begin the project there and work with his team as well as the academy on how we incorporate the cadets into the complete project, making sure that the end result is a resource that the academy can use for their educational purposes. Brad Jones did identify that we did have the meeting with the tribes at Palidoro Canyon, which I think was very good. Working with Gallagher and Associates, not only on the exhibit design at Washington on the Brazos, but also an economic analysis for historic sites that the chairman would like to have completed before the legislative session. And then working with Sam and the Levi Jordan Plantation Advisory Committee as we work forward with the next community meeting. But the community meetings so far have been very good, well attended, and very civil. And then next, legal matters.
Let me inject something here. The last point there was Kleberg County. A number of us went down for a site visit. I'll just say, and I know we have a number of young people here, never in your life have you ever seen an old fuse box. Now, I can tell you that I saw my grandparents' fuse box, and if you didn't have a fuse, you could put a penny in it and it would conduct it. And it also caused fires. By the time we were finished with that, and this is the benefit of putting our feet on the ground and our eyes open, I called the Kleberg judge and said, you know, the real issue here is vacating the courthouse, getting everything done, and then moving back in. They are looking at options for moving the whole function out. So Joseph, our courthouse people need to take a look at that and consider how that might be happening, because there's no way in the world you can piecemeal that place to save.
Yeah.
Okay, I forgot to say that. Legal matters, we have none like that. That's the first time you heard nothing from a lawyer. Joseph?
I think we're
done.
it's your report.
You just heard it. So,
Okay. Then we're done.
do I have a motion to adjourn? And I think we made the timeline. Sorry for the rapid work here, but we're adjourned. Thanks, everybody.
I was waiting for you to chime in about the meeting.